Donald Trump is so terrified of American voters that he is literally using the entire United States government as a bargaining chip, refusing to let anything pass, including bills to lower your grocery bill and your rent, until Congress passes a law specifically designed to make it harder for you to vote, built on a problem that, by the Conservative Heritage Foundation's own data, has occurred fewer than 80 times in the last 25 years, out of more than 1 billion votes cast. They're calling it election integrity. You might call it using the power of the presidency to tilt the next election in his favor before we've even finished counting what just happened. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer took to the Senate floor yesterday to respond to Trump's dramatic Truth Social demand, issued from his golf club in Doral, Florida, naturally, in which he declared he would block every single bill that lands on his desk until Congress delivers the SAVE Act, and not a toned-down version of it either. What you're about to hear is Schumer laying out exactly what this bill actually does versus what they're telling you it does. And the part about DOGE using AI to quietly erase tens of millions of people from the official lists of registered voters without ever notifying them is, I promise you, not an exaggeration. Let's watch the video, and I will break it down for you at the end.
And finally, on the SAVE Act. Yesterday, Donald Trump posted that he will not sign any legislation, no matter how important, until Congress sends him the SAVE Act, and a beefed-up SAVE Act at that. The SAVE Act is nothing more than Jim Crow 2.0. It is a voter suppression bill. It takes away vote by mail. It makes it harder for people to register, and would require states to hand over voter rolls to election deniers at the Department of Justice. The real damage here is not when you show up at the poll to vote and ask for ID. It's the registration. They ask every state for their voter rolls, and a Musk-inspired DOGE voter ID using AI would be used to take tens of millions of people off the voting rolls, and they're not even told. They show up at the voting place on Election Day. They say, sorry, ma'am, sorry, sir, you're not on the rolls. Why? Because of this DOGE thing. It's outrageous. It is Jim Crow all over again. And now he says he doesn't even want vote by mail. Tell that to handicapped people. And to register, when they kick you off, you have to show up in person, only 5% do, and you have to show a passport or an original birth certificate. Very hard for people to obtain. It's outrageous. Outrageous. And now Donald Trump says he will not sign any bill to lower costs, lower rent, lower groceries, until Congress passes this bill taking away tens of millions of citizens' right to vote. If Trump is saying he won't sign any bills until the SAVE Act is passed, there'll be total gridlock in the Congress. On the other hand, if the SAVE Act does pass, democracy will be in very serious danger. Donald Trump is saying, in effect, unless Congress helps him undermine democracy, he's prepared to hold the rest of the country hostage. This is what he does. He's a thug. He's a bully. He can't ever argue on the merits, so he threatens. And no bills to bring down gas prices, no bills to make groceries more affordable, no bills to increase housing, not until the SAVE Act passes. That's what Donald Trump is saying. Democrats will make sure that never happens.
All right, let me add what you didn't just hear. First, the 21 million number Schumer references is not a partisan talking point. That figure comes from a 2023 survey conducted by the Brennan Center for Justice in partnership with Vote Riders, PublicWise, and the University of Maryland's Center for Democracy and Civic Engagement, finding that roughly 21.3 million voting-age Americans, or about 1 in 10, do not have easy access to official documents that prove they're a U.S. citizen, like a passport or birth certificate. And here's the thing about the passport requirement specifically. A standard Real ID, the card most Americans carry in their wallet and use to board a plane, would not satisfy the SAVE Act's requirements because Real IDs are available to both citizens and non-citizens, and no state's standard Real ID explicitly marks citizenship status. So the next time someone tells you this is just basic voter ID, understand that they are describing a form of ID that most Americans don't own and would need to pay to obtain. That's what used to be called a poll tax, a fee you had to pay just to vote, which the US banned because it kept poor people from the ballot box. Just worth mentioning. Now here's what Schumer was getting at with the DOGE angle, and this part has receipts. According to a court filing by the Department of Justice, the Trump administration's own DOJ, dated January 16th, 2026, a DOGE staffer who had been placed inside the Social Security Administration, the federal agency that manages retirement and disability benefits for millions of Americans, signed what the filing literally calls a voter data agreement with an outside political advocacy group. The group's stated purpose, per the DOJ filing, was to find evidence of voter fraud and to overturn election results in certain states. This agreement was signed on March 24th, 2025, 4 days after a federal judge had already issued a court order specifically blocking DOGE from touching Social Security data. The SSA later reported 2 of the people involved to federal ethics investigators for potentially breaking a law that bans government employees from using their jobs for political purposes. So when Schumer says the SAVE Act would hand voter rolls to election deniers at the Department of Justice, that is not hyperbole. That is a documented pattern of behavior that his administration itself has now, admitted to in a federal court filing. And let's be extremely clear about the underlying justification for all of this. The Conservative Heritage Foundation, which has spent years building the most comprehensive database of voter fraud cases in existence, documented a grand total of 77 confirmed instances of non-citizens successfully casting ballots between 1999 and 2023, according to an independent analysis by the Bipartisan Policy Center, which downloaded and went through Heritage's own database case by case. According to the American Immigration Council's separate analysis of that same Heritage database, proven non-citizen voting works out to a rate of below 0.0001% of all votes cast. In Michigan, one of the states that conducted an exhaustive audit of the 2024 election, officials found 16 credible cases out of 5.7 million votes, 0.00028%. A federal judge reviewing Arizona's proof of citizenship laws wrote in her ruling that non-citizen voting in Arizona is quite rare, and non-citizen voter fraud in Arizona is rarer still. This is not a problem that has been hidden from us. It has been studied by everyone, including the people pushing this bill, and the answer keeps coming back the same. It is incredibly rare, already illegal, already taken to court when it happens, and already stopped by the very real fear of prison and deportation. What is not rare is the damage already caused by these exact requirements in the states that have tried them. According to reporting from VoteBeat, Arizona's proof of citizenship laws have blocked 32,000 eligible voters from state and local elections, and they are disproportionately young people near college campuses. When Kansas tried a similar documentary requirement, the 10th Circuit struck it down as an unconstitutional burden on eligible voters, blocking more than 31,000 legitimate citizens from registering in the process. The Save America Act, the beefed-up version he is specifically demanding Congress send him, would additionally mandate voter roll purges every 30 days. That eliminates the 90-day window that federal law currently requires before any election, a window designed to give voters time to find out if they've been removed and fix it. So here's the language you can use. This is not a bill to stop illegal voting. Illegal voting is already stopped by law, by courts, and by the perfectly rational fear that an undocumented immigrant is not going to risk deportation to cast one ballot in a midterm. This is a bill to make it harder to register in the first place, using a made-up emergency as a cover for a strategy that is as old as American politics itself. So what does this actually mean for you? If you're one of the 21 million Americans without a passport or an original birth certificate, which includes a wildly uneven share of elderly Americans, Black Americans, and married women who change their names, you would be required under the Save America Act to show up in person to an elections office to register, with documents you may not have and may need to pay to obtain, at a time when only 5.9% of voters currently register that way, a figure drawn directly from the U.S. Election Assistance Commission's own Election Administration and Voting Survey. Imagine your bank changing the rules so that you could only deposit checks in person between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Tuesdays, and then calling it a streamlined customer experience. Meanwhile, a new NBC News poll conducted February 27th through March 3rd found that 62% of voters already disapprove of how he has handled inflation and the cost of living. And his response is to announce he won't sign anything to fix it until this passes. The specific mechanism Schumer describes, using AI to mass purge voter rolls without notifying the people removed, is not theoretical. DOGE has already tried to run this playbook using Social Security data. According to the MIT Election Data and Science Lab's Charles Stewart, matching voter registration lists against government databases using only names and birthdays throws up huge numbers of wrong results, and it is extremely common for state reviews to mistakenly mark people who legally became U.S. citizens through immigration as if they weren't citizens at all. Texas officials once wrongly flagged nearly 100,000 people as potential non-citizens. The acting Secretary of State resigned. This is the glitchy, mistake-prone system they want to run across the entire country every 30 days without telling anyone they've been removed until they show up on Election Day. And for what? For 77 cases in 25 years out of 1 billion votes. They say it's about election integrity. They say it's about citizenship. They say it's an 88% issue, which is funny because they've also been saying for 2 years that the 2020 election was stolen from them in a system that somehow both cheated and didn't let enough non-citizens in. You can't have it both ways. What this is actually about is the midterms. His approval ratings are in free fall, the economy is cratering, and the only remaining tool in the playbook is the oldest one in American history. If you can't win the voters you have, find a way to get rid of the voters you don't. The Libertarian Cato Institute's David Beer, who is not exactly a progressive activist, said flatly that DOGE has repeatedly made massive data errors. When the libertarians and the MIT election scientists are saying the same thing as Chuck Schumer, that's usually a sign the people pushing the policy aren't actually doing it because they believe in it. As of this week, the Save America Act has passed the House 218 to 213, but faces a 60-vote requirement in the Senate, meaning they need some Democrats to agree, but Republicans only hold 53 seats. According to NBC News reporting, Senate Republicans are already fracturing, because he is now demanding the House pass the bill a third time after adding provisions to ban most mail-in voting and tack on transgender restrictions, which has nothing to do with voter eligibility, but everything to do with the fact that this was never actually about voter eligibility. This isn't about whether you need to show ID to vote. Every state already has processes to verify voter eligibility. Federal law already requires voters to swear they're a citizen every time they register, and lying about it is a crime, and that has always been the case. This is about whether the federal government gets to build a national system powered by DOGE data mining, run through error-prone databases, operated by people who have already signed agreements with political groups whose goal is to overturn election results they don't like, that can silently remove you from the voter rolls before you ever get to the polling place. The thing about burning down your kitchen because you found one ant is that you still don't have any ants when it's over, but you also don't have a kitchen. 77 confirmed cases of non-citizen voting in 25 years is the ant. 21 million American citizens who can't easily produce a birth certificate are the kitchen. The president just announced he's refusing to let anyone put out the fire, unless you first hand him the matches that started it. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video and drop a comment below with your thoughts. Your engagement really helps more people see information like this, so share this video with friends and family who need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you never miss future updates and deep dives like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.